All right, folks. So unfortunately, this will be our last episode with Eric Krakauer during Euro 2020. As Eric, I'm not sure if you are aware, but apparently the Seleção lost this weekend 1-0 to those pesky Belgians. But we bring you in now to get your thoughts and to make sure that you're doing okay. I'm doing okay, but are you doing okay, sir?
I'm doing better. And after watching France lose, I felt a little bit better because, as a Portuguese, you can't help but have a certain amount of animosity towards the French because the French always seem to knock us out of tournaments. So I was very, very upset on Sunday night. But come Monday, I felt a heck of a lot better.
Did you feel upset or were you more sad? Because I felt more sad because this wasn't the same kind of loss that Germany was. This was a loss that they kept attacking, they kept going at Belgium, especially in that second half. But they just couldn't figure out a way to get the ball past Courtois and to at least either tie the match or even win it. So it was more frustrating. I wasn't upset. I was more, sad is such a relative term, but I wasn't pissed off, I guess. I was sad that it ended, but I wasn't upset with how it ended, I guess.
Well, look, I was a little bit pissed off because it seems that Portugal only really assert themselves when the backs are against the wall. And this is something that's been part of the DNA for many, many years. Even in qualifying, you and I had a conversation a few pods ago about the qualification process and how Portugal has often, had to claw back at the end of the qualification process because they've slipped up in ways that are almost unforgivable for a team of that magnitude. And
sure.
Considering how relatively easy the qualification process is for most European teams, especially when they are considered, contenders like Portugal is. So I was frustrated that it took, a goal that is born out of a defensive mistake, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, and the last 15 minutes of the game when you realize that you're at the end of the rope and the road, that you start pushing everybody forward. And I don't think that there was really much of a strategy insofar as how to attack, how to break down that defensive posture put up by Belgium.
Yeah, it seemed to the creativity seemed to end right around the 18 and trying to figure out how to break down that Belgium defense. But let's go through the match here. Again, a big time match. The number one team according to FIFA, Belgium, the defending European champs. In our Seleção. First chance came for Portugal in the 6th minute. Fernando Santos, who for my money was Portugal's best player throughout the entire tournament. He took off, just spun around a Belgium defender right at midfield, found Diogo Jota in space, and Diogo Jota did what Diogo Jota did all tournament long. Just in my opinion, he pressed the entire 4 games, the 4 matches for the Seleção, just didn't even put the ball on frame. I thought it was a microcosm of his tournament. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. His first touch was a poor one because it takes him away from goal and it forces him on his left foot, where perhaps if he takes a better touch with his right foot and puts him in a more narrow position, he can hit it with his right foot.
Even hitting it first time, I thought was an option.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. But it was an excellent play from Fernando Santos, who was diabolical in those first 45. I thought he made a couple of mistakes in possession, held on to the ball a little bit too much in the second half, but that's only if I'm being very, very picky. He and Pep were by far the best players for Portugal in this tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. In the 25th minute, after a Vermaelen handball on the right side of the box, Ronaldo, in my opinion, hit his best free kick of the tournament from about 25 yards out. That was denied by Courtois, and Palhinha headed it back to him, but that was never really a dangerous effort there. the final blow, the first and final blow, came in the 42nd minute after you mentioned it, just not being able to clear the ball just outside their 18. Thorgan Hazard with a swerving rocket that beat Rui Patricio for what we know as the game-winning goal there. Not a great defensive effort there by the Seleção trying to get that ball out of their own end. Talk to me a little bit about what you saw leading up to that goal, and then talk to me about how you thought Rui Patricio did in the attempt to save that shot by Hazard.
Well, if we go back to the last pod that I was on with you, I mentioned that one of the big differences between Germany and Belgium, given that they play the same system more or less, is that Thorgan Hazard is a right-footed player, so he looks to cut inside rather than attack the wing like Gosens did. And by the way, this is a complete aside, but if you watched England against Germany today, it just reinforced how pathetically Portugal played that game against Germany.
Sure. And
all the freedom that they afforded Kimmich and Gosens. But that's a whole different story. We can go back into that if you want to a little bit later. Because
that game's too painful. I don't want to talk about it.
Well, it sort of underscores, though, Danny. It sort of underscores something that we'll talk about, which is Fernando Santos and his future in the team. But for me, the key to that play isn't so much that they failed to clear the ball, because that happens. The ball ricochets. Sure. You get a little bit unlucky. It's the fact that once Hazard cuts inside, nobody pushes up to him. He has a free shot and he hits it beautifully. And those, I'm not a goalkeeper and I'm not a goalkeeping expert, but from having conversations, with goalkeepers that I've worked with, I work with a former Manchester United goalkeeper, and talking to him about different situations that arise in games, and actually following a very good goalkeeping account on Twitter, it's almost impossible to save that ball. I mean, that's
sure.
defying the laws of gravity. There's the point of when Hazard shoots the ball, which makes it look like the ball is going towards that near post. Rui Patricio makes that initial move to the right, and then once the ball starts swinging out, he's wrong-footed. There's no way he's going to get there. So it's a beautiful goal. We can't put any blame on Rui Patricio, but we can sort of focus on how slow the Portuguese back line, and I think it was Pep, actually, who doesn't push up quickly enough, nor does Ruben Dias.
Yeah, I only bring up Rui Patricio because his name has been talked about a little bit more just in terms of this tournament. People thought that he had a poor game against Germany. My opinion, I mean, those goals were coming at him from just, they were coming hot and heavy, and I don't know what other goalkeeper could have done a better job against Germany.
I think most of the finger pointing was about his distribution.
Okay, that's fair.
With his feet, because he did make some very key saves against Germany. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, no, absolutely. And then I think some folks may have took umbrage with maybe the angle he took on the Benzema second goal. But again, I only bring up Rui Patricio because I know that his name has been bandied about a little bit this tournament. But yeah, that puts us at 1-0 at the half. Right before the half, though, a João Palhinha yellow card on KDB. For all intents and purposes, knocks KDB out of the game because 2 minutes into the second half, De Bruyne cannot go any further because of the ankle. Did you think? I'll ask you about the tackle. I think I know where you're going to go with the tackle, but did you think it was clean? Did it merit a yellow card?
It merited a yellow card, and you could make the case that it could be an orange card. Because
are we playing indoor? Is that what we're doing?
Do they give orange cards indoor?
Who knows?
He slides in with his right boot and gets the ball, but his trailing leg catches De Bruyne's ankle in a very, very bad way. And you actually see that tackle in other situations cause a leg break or an ankle break. Actually, one that comes to mind was in the final of the Coupe de France between Saint-Etienne and PSG last year, where there was a direct red for a very similar tackle on Kylian Mbappe. I forget the player who was sent off. And Kylian Mbappe, very lucky not to have his ankle snapped off. Very similar. So I think yellow is fine. But I'll tell you what, at that point, he was very, very lucky, Palhinha, because he should have gotten a yellow card for pulling back.
Yes. Lukaku
earlier on. I couldn't believe that the referee didn't see that.
Yeah, and it wasn't even an indication of playing an advantage either. That was the strangest part to me. Not so much the yellow card not being given, but there was no stoppage once Belgium lost the possession. But but as soon as KDB is off the field, Eric, Belgium, to call them pedestrian, I think would be kind, because they did nothing for the next 45, 46, 47 minutes, and that's when you saw the frustration of being a fan of the Seleção. You finally saw Portugal kind of be on the front foot when they absolutely needed to, instead of initiating that way. And that started with the subs coming in the 56th, with Bruno Fernandes and João Felix coming in for João Moutinho and Bernard Silva. Again, Bernard Silva, we can talk about him and his tournament. We can get that after the recap here. But one of the better opportunities for Portugal came in the 58th minute with some nice combo work between Ronaldo and Diogo Dalot. Ronaldo found a pass to Jota right in front of the 6. He misses it, puts it over the goal. In the 61st minute, Fernando Santos finds João Felix right on the right side of the 6. He heads it, but Courtois is there for the save. And then about 20 minutes left, Diogo Jota makes way for André Silva. Some news on André Silva coming up later on in the pod here. And then the final subs were Danilo and Sergio Oliveira for Palhinha and Fernando Santos. Portugal hits the frame. Actually, not the frame, but hits nope, I'm a little bit ahead of myself here. In the 81st, it's a header from Ruben Dias off of a corner. And then Guerreiro hits the right post. Would have beaten Courtois if that just goes in 2 inches inside the post. And that was it, Eric, and that was the end of the Euros for Portugal. Chances, sure, they were there, did not convert. It was a little refreshing to see them play the way they did in the second half. But again, the frustration that you and I both have is why wait until your back is against the wall to play like that, to be on the front foot? And that has been an absolute fair criticism in my part to the Fernando Santos era these last 2-3 years.
Yes, and I think that's a big point that I won't, rehash again because we made it right at the top of the broadcast. But I would add something else, and that is that even in possession, when Portugal had possession in the first half, they were simply incapable of breaking down the Belgian national team. Incapable, just out of ideas. The only time that they really threatened was in transition. If Belgium lost the ball up the field, and Renato Sanches, more than anybody else, broke out at speed, wrestled away from his marker and found an option. There was a crazy moment also in the first half, I believe, where Diogo Dalot has the ball all the way on the right side. He dribbles past a couple of players and then has to slow down because nobody's joined them into the attack.
Yeah, there were numerous times, Eric, not to cut you off, but there were numerous times where you're seeing a Portuguese player, whether it be from the back or receiving the ball in the midfield, and they go and they're on the front foot, and then it's almost like they take a swerve to the left or to the right because the ball then has to go to the wing because it always goes to the wing, and then that's the way that they decide to attack. And I get it, that's sometimes the way to attack things, but I'm with you. I'm with you in this sense. It's frustrating to see it's just a passive approach.
Well, it's a lack. It's more than just a passive approach. It's
lack of creativity, like you've mentioned before.
Yeah, but it's not the player's responsibility here. This also comes down to coaching, right? You need some attacking fundamentals, and fundamentals is probably the wrong word, right? Because fundamentals are fundamentals, but
sure.
You need attacking processes in place. You need to put players in situations in terms of training, in terms of practice, and I'm sure that Fernando Santos does this, but maybe he doesn't do it well enough or consistently enough. But you put players in situations where you have a plan to break down a defense that will sit quite deep. And if Fernando Santos goes into this game and thinks that Belgium is just going to attack Portugal outright, then he didn't do his homework very well, because we saw it against Denmark. They beat Denmark, but they were sitting back for 80 minutes of that game. And then it took two very special moments from Kevin De Bruyne to to kill off the Danes. So, he needed to have a plan on how to attack, how to break down that team, and it just seemed like there was none. And Cristiano Ronaldo, simply doesn't help, and he had a pretty good game. But the thing is, if you're playing with Cristiano Ronaldo in the role that he's supposed to be playing in, but he is spending most of his time out wide, there were so many instances where you look at the box, the Belgian box, and there's nobody there.
Sure.
There's nobody there for Portugal. So you have to rotate the ball back, and then you have to resort to these shots from absolutely nowhere. And that statistic of Portugal out shooting Belgium really is deceiving, right? It doesn't really demonstrate dominance. Belgium managed that game beautifully after going ahead. They did what they had to do. They scored the goal, and then they basically sat back in a very organized manner and said, come on, give us what you've got, and let's see if we can fend you off. And you know what? For the most part, Portugal didn't give them very much.
Yep, we're talking with Eric Krakauer here of beIN Sports. He's been look at that mug. My God,
it's the only thing that is bringing me some sort of what's the word? I need to find a good word here. Well, it's helped me heal, right?
Understood.
Over the last few days, but giving me some. Oh my God, I'm lacking for vocabulary here.
It's I just need you for one more show, man. That's it.
I'll think about it. I'll think about it. It's been a busy day.
Did you purchase
Comfort,
that?
comfort is what
there
I was
it is.
looking for. There it is.
Did you purchase that? Did you purchase that mug recently? Like, I don't know, maybe late May.
No, I've had this one for a while.
All right. There's a lot of different ways we can go right now, Eric. I want to focus. Let's focus on Fernando Santos. As soon as the final whistle was blown, Twitter was going, he needs to go, he needs to go, he needs to go. We both think, or we both thought that, and I have come to this. I've come to this rationale that I have been a big Fernando Santos defender because of 2016, and I have defended him, and no pun intended, because he's a defensive coach. But I've defended him to a fault because his system has always been one that gave Portugal result after result. We would qualify. We would get to, we won the tournament in 2016, won the Nations League in 2019. But when it was broken, and I think it was broken against that in Germany, or against Germany, in Germany, in Munich, my patience and my defense of him waned a little bit. And I think both things can be true. I don't know if I said this to you while you were on, or if I put it as part of the beginning part of that episode. But everyone can thank Fernando Santos for everything he has absolutely done for this national team. He is the first to ever coach this national team to an international title. No one can do that. The Golden Generation didn't bring that. Eusebio, God rest his soul, didn't bring that to us. Fernando Santos and this group of players, the majority of them brought us that first international trophy. With that said, when your time is done, your time is done. And I think you and I are of the opinion that Fernando Santos, for everything he's done, his time is done, or should be done, I should say, with this current group of players.
Yeah, I think the irony is that, given how poorly they've done since 2016, and we can go on and on about 2016 and how fortunate Portugal were. I know that there was a question that somebody asked us, it was more of a comment, where it said, how can you consider Portugal lucky in 2016 when they've been semifinalists in 2006, when they reached the final in 2004? Yeah, look, Portugal has been one of the most successful teams in major tournaments over the last decade, more than that, almost 2 decades. That is true, but that doesn't in any way negate the fact that in 2016 Portugal were very, very lucky. I mean, in 2 major tournaments, the last major tournaments that we have had before this one. This is the
and let me read it real quick from
under. Let me just finish this.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Right? So we won against Wales in 2016, and then we won against Morocco in 2018. And we won against Hungary in this one. That's 3 wins.
In 3 tournaments.
In 3 major tournaments.
Yeah.
For a team with this much talent, with a team that had Cristiano Ronaldo Still, I know he's older. He's in the twilight of his career, but a better player than most players in the world, especially in this position. It needs to be better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is Andrew Gomes. He's on Twitter here, Gomesy17. Yeah, he runs it down. 2000 semifinal, 2004 runner-up, brings it all the way up to the Nations League. But you're right, Eric. In terms of winning in regulation, and again, there is, to me, this isn't a. I'm not here to bash Fernando Santos because again, this is a gentleman who I will take a tournament win like that, Eric, every day of the week. I don't care if the soccer is ugly, and at times it was, and it has been ugly the last few years. I will always be indebted to Fernando Santos. He should be canonized in Lisbon, 100%. But it's okay to criticize someone who's brought you a championship that hasn't been getting the most out of the talent that he has received, and I just see such it's either one or the other. It's like you have to love Fernando Santos or he sucks, and it's neither. And it's neither.
Right. It's polarizing. It's the polarization of these topics, and it seems like we live in a world where there's no nuance anymore. And I don't know if I actually finished the point or if I made it correctly. I was going to say, ironically, I think he's outlived his welcome, and because he's outliving his welcome, everything that he accomplished in the past gets a little bit blemished. I mean, to some degree, right? I mean, it happened with Arsene Wenger at Arsenal. Look at Joachim Löw with the German national team.
Sure, absolutely.
In 2014, and I'm not going to say that he should have left after 2014, but obviously the decade that he was in charge had a lot of failures as well, including not moving out of the group stage in the 2018 World Cup. So there are cycles for managers, and very few are able to achieve success after remaining there for a long time. Vladimir Petkovic with Switzerland is one of the names that comes to mind of a guy who's been there for a considerable amount of time, and he just seems to be always progressing with this Swiss national team, defeating France, obviously the absolute apex of that. I think Fernando Santos has done, he did what nobody else has done with this national team. He did it ugly, but he succeeded. The problem is that now we're doing it ugly. We're not living up to the potential of the quality players that we have, particularly in the attack, and we're not winning. So that trifecta alone says, you know what? It's time to go. You've been fantastic. We should build a statue of you in the Ciudad Futbol in Oeiras. But that's it.
The statue, does it come with a cigarette or no?
I would say no.
Okay, well,
live healthy.
Live healthy. So Record, I don't know if it's official yet, but Record, a newspaper out of Portugal, I guess it was today's paper. All signs are that Fernando Santos is going to stay on as a manager for the foreseeable. The World Cup is next year in November. We also have World Cup qualifying. Portugal's already 3 matches in. They have 5 matches left to go in their qualifying the rest of this calendar year. Do you think, Eric, the fact that I'll look at the qualifying portion of it. Portugal, obviously 7 points. They're up top. Do you think the recency may not be the correct word, but how close we are to resuming national team duty here? September 1st against Ireland is the first match. You're calling a squad. I would say late August, and the tournament doesn't even end until the middle of July. So you're out now. You're looking at about a month and a half, roughly, until the next call-up comes up. Do you think it's just not enough time to make the change? Or do you think it's something that because he's signed through 2024, the Federation doesn't want to eat that money?
I think it's more of the latter than it is of the former. I do think absolutely that the fact that there isn't a big window of time between getting knocked out of this tournament and getting back into World Cup qualification plays a part in it. And there's always the fear that, not only do you have to get rid of this guy, but you have to search for the right candidate. You have to interview, and then he has to call out the players, and then you have to, put out a blueprint for what happens going forward. And that is a big process, undoubtedly. The money is the biggest issue for me. You've just signed a contract a year ago, an extension, so he's not going to go anywhere. So we can fantasize about who could come and and completely revolutionize the system. It just simply is not going to happen. I would argue this, though, that if the money were there, and Portugal does have a treasure chest, right? I mean, I don't know how much money they have in their coffers, but I certainly.
The amount of number 7 shirts that they sell, should probably help them out a little bit.
I don't know. The whole jersey sale thing, I think, is a little bit of a myth in terms of covering most costs. But that's a different conversation. But the reality is they have money to pay off Fernando Santos. And I'm of the belief that it is better to take a gamble on a coach who has a winning track record. And there are a few who are interested in the job who have a winning track record or have a record of playing a particular brand of football that would be better suited for the players that we have representing our country. It is better to take that risk than it is to just rely on what Fernando Santos has been doing and will continue to do, because I know that there are a lot of people out there who, having seen what happened in this tournament, and with Fernando Santos having seen where he has failed, that he is going to somehow, figure out a way to change his perception of the tactics that will bring us success. That's never going to happen. So Fernando Santos stays, and we're going to see exactly the same type of football, and we're going to continue knocking our heads against the wall.
Yeah, let's talk about, again, he's not going anywhere, but let's play a little bit of fantasy here, Eric. Let's say news comes out tomorrow, he resigns or he's fired. Are there some names? You said that you've heard of some names that are interested in the job. One that comes to mind, I think it was published in The Athletic in the UK. I think they had an interview with André Villas-Boas. I think in that article he mentioned something about interest in coaching the Seleção. I didn't read that he was interested in doing it right away, but maybe an eventuality. But you've heard his name. There are some Portuguese names that are available at the moment. You have Paulo Fonseca, Luís Castro, Nuno Espírito Santo, but he's either going to Fenerbahce or to Spurs, depending on who you're reading and depending on what the hell Daniel Levy wants to do in London. But you also have some interesting names that are not Portuguese, and I kind of want your take on a non-Portuguese hire, if that would be something that could be a benefit to the Seleção. I'll let you answer that question first, and then I'll give you the name that I think gives me the most pause when thinking about the possibility. But you go first.
I would prefer somebody who's Portuguese because of the familiarity with not only the domestic league, but already with the players. It just seems like less of a heavy lift for somebody who already in some ways has his finger on the pulse. So I'm not
fair enough.
And this isn't about a coach being foreign. There are lots of foreign coaches who would come in and probably do a very good job. Personally, I don't see somebody out there who would be an ideal candidate to do so. I think there are a lot more candidates who are perfectly suited to take over the reins. And, I would argue that one of our greatest exports is coaching. We have some of the best coaches in the world. We're everywhere. We're everywhere. Coaches who didn't do especially well in Portugal, who went abroad and succeeded, like a Castro, as you mentioned. So I would like to see another Portuguese coach.
Any name that comes to mind for you that you would like to see? Like, again, scenario is he's fired tomorrow. He and this guy or one of these guys are available. Who would you want to see possibly maybe not right away, but maybe one day take over?
Well, hold on a second. Weren't you going to ask? Weren't you going to
Oh yeah,
me
well,
out a name of a foreigner?
Well, yeah. Now you kind of poo-pooed that, and
Well, no, go ahead.
now I'm feeling bashful. I mean, I think
No,
Antonio
don't
I think Antonio Conte would be a nice hire. I would love.
Couldn't afford him.
I know. I would love to see Zidane.
No,
but I think he might actually get the gig in France after what happened. But those are just 2 forenames. I wouldn't want to do any. And again, these are guys that don't have a lot of national team experience. I know Conte had his small run with Italy, no experience for in international football for Zidane, but. I mean, I'm throwing out names just because it's a little fun. It's the silly season. One, because we know he's not going anywhere, but yeah, like Antonio Conte. As soon as I'm like, well, he's not. He might be something that again, I don't know if it's a. I'm with you. I'd rather go with a Portuguese coach, a Brazilian coach. I mean, Scolari was successful to a certain extent with this national team.
He was important. Scolari was important insofar as changing the mentality of the Portuguese national team, believing that they could compete again, right? Having that tournament experience and getting the most out of a very talented golden generation. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, no, it's fine. What name for you then?
Well, let me just say something about Antonio Conte really quickly. I'm a big fan of Conte's because I think
but again, it's all money, baby.
It's about money, but there are very few managers who can restructure a team so quickly and get them to play successfully. You look at Chelsea, you look at what he was able to do with Inter Milan this season, and all you have to do is look back to 2016 and what he was able to do with the Azzurri, who had a terrible team, right? Relatively speaking. Zinedine Zidane is a special case. This is a guy who is more about the cult of personality and controlling big egos than him being a major strategist, and I could get attacked for that. But I've covered Real Madrid for many years, and I think he's a much better coach than people sometimes give him credit for. But he's not the tactician that I would be looking for to take over the Portuguese national team. I'm a big fan of Villas-Boas. I always have been, even when he was in charge of Porto. I think he was hard done at Chelsea, but it was part of his own naivete because he thought he could clean house when he got there. He could get rid of John Terry and Frank Lampard, who then went on to not only win another league, but also went on to win the Champions League. I thought he did rather well with Tottenham when Tottenham were evolving as a team. And more recently, when he arrived at Marseille, I thought that he was able to implement his football. He was lacking a goal scorer. Dario Benedetto didn't, he was never a prolific goal scorer for Boca Juniors. And when he arrived at Marseille, he didn't add what he needed. It ended in acrimony, but I think that he's exactly the kind of attack-minded coach that players like João Felix, like Jota, like André Silva could benefit from. Having said that, he has a very elaborate way of playing, and the drawback could be that given that there isn't so much time as you mentioned, and given that he won't be with the players in training for too long as well, it could be a little bit harder to implement a system, but of course he would make adjustments, to it. So I think he'd be a great candidate. I also like Paulo Fonseca a lot. He's a little bit more pragmatic. He's still pretty attack-minded, but he's more pragmatic, and a guy who right now is very available. And given that things didn't go as well as he thought they would with Roma, and things fell through at Tottenham because they weren't paying him what he thought he should be paid, I think he'd jump at the chance of coaching the Portuguese national team.
Yeah, those are 2 interesting names for me on the Portuguese side. I will go off of the coaching quote unquote search with this question. Let's say Fernando Santos gets this team by the end of 2021, gets this team qualified for the World Cup. That tournament, Eric, does not start until November. Could you see again fantasy, because he's not getting fired if he gets them to the World Cup, but if there was a changing of the guard the ending of qualification, and if they qualify first, a guaranteed spot, a pot one type scenario for the Seleção going into this World Cup that isn't 6 months from the qualification. It's nearly 12 months after qualification. If the federation had any balls, and if this is still the same kind of soccer that's being played by the end of November, pull the trigger on Fernando Santos. Thank you, Mister. It's been a great run. And then you have an entire calendar year with probably a bunch of friendlies for the most part, because no competitive soccer is going to be played for the majority of 2022. And then you get a Villas-Boas, you get a Paulo Fonseca. You could afford but you could then bring a guy like Conte, who then has almost an entire year to put his system in place for the tournament that could be a last hurrah for a lot of these players that are currently on this roster.
I think it would be better to pull the trigger now.
Okay.
Because after that, you have just a bunch of friendlies. It's not the same. Competitive games is where you want to test the system that you're putting forward, the players that you want to show faith in, and I just think that given their position in the standings, I think they have 7 points right now.
Yeah, they're tied with Serbia on goal differential. They're up top. Of course, they could have had 9 points if they didn't squander the 2-0 advantage at Serbia. But go ahead.
Right, and the remainder of the games. I mean, you got Republic of Ireland coming up. They're just nowhere near who they were in the 90s, and even then they weren't that good. So I think that this is an easy enough group where I think there's enough time and it's worth taking the risk to bring somebody in. And again, I'm speaking, theoretically here because I don't believe it's going to happen. But now would be the time, and not after qualification. Give this guy as much time as you possibly can to get his feet wet, to figure out which players he wants to use and how to get the best out of them.
Yep, absolutely. We are talking with Eric Krakauer here of beIN Sports. We are going over Portugal's exit following their 1-0 loss to Belgium in the round of 16 of Euro 2020. The defending European champions, they are no more. There will be a new European champion, much to our chagrin, but such is life in the world of football. Eric, let's go back to the match real quick. And I sent this to you in the notes, and in some of the notes, I give Eric notes about stuff we want to talk about, and I actually gave him some of my thoughts on this, and I kind of want to get his idea on it. João Cancelo was a big loss to this team in this tournament, not so much for his defensive capabilities, but for his attacking. I thought, and this is no slight to Diogo Dalot, who I thought had a pretty decent game against Belgium, but especially in the second half, I thought that João Cancelo's absence was felt the most in those 45 minutes against Belgium, more so than at any point in the tournament.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Although I would say that Cancelo's absence wasn't really the problem here overall. But I think if you are just looking at that second half, then yes, you've got a guy who likes to slash through defenses on that right side, a guy who can attack down the middle as well as on the wing. He can overlap. That's what I mean. He can score with his right foot, score with his left foot when he cuts inside. He's a supremely talented player. I forget who it was, but somebody said when he signed for Inter, or was it Juve? Well, when he went to Italy, somebody said that he was the first player who this guy had seen who was as good of a fullback attacking as Cafu. I mean, that's high praise. High praise, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's very high praise. So I think that this is a guy who was certainly missed in that game, but we are talking about far bigger systematic issues than Cancelo. But against Belgium, I think he could have made a huge difference.
Yeah, I also mentioned to you that this team, I think, is in a bit of an identity crisis simply because of what the current manager wants to play in terms of style and the current crop of players on the offensive side that we have. And I mentioned that I think the team lacks a couple of things, and I think that it could all be solved with not a lot of changes to the roster, but just obviously the style. I think this team lacks a true number 10, and I think that this team could solve that by just bringing Bernardo Silva inside instead of always playing him on the wing. I know he plays on the wing a little bit too at Man City, but I think this team has lacked creativity in the middle of the field for the last few years, and the refusal to put him in the middle to at least try it out more than just a half here and in need of a goal there, I think has been a reason that I think he's been misused. And I think just an all-out striker, like a pure striker. Ronaldo scores goals. God bless him. He's scored more goals than almost anyone in international football. But again, maybe it's just a coaching issue. I don't understand how you can have a guy like Andres Silva who scores 30-plus goals in all competitions for Germany and not be able to get the most out of him. Maybe he is the striker we need. Maybe he is the guy that could play best with Ronaldo up top. But I think the needs that I mentioned could very well be solved simply by a change of tactic. But what do you think about those two needs in terms of, or those two areas where I think the Seleção lacks right now?
Well, it's interesting. If you talk about the number 9, that's the position that Cristiano Ronaldo was supposed to be playing in this tournament. And when we needed him to show up in the box, maybe not to finish off the move himself, but to keep those center backs busy, because for the most part, Belgium center backs didn't have really any work to do. Alderweireld, Vertonghen, he was the third center back.
Vermaelen.
And Vermaelen. I mean, I used to love Vermaelen, but he's a shadow of the player that he used to be. Oh, we got a visitor there.
What's up, buddy? Yeah, my youngest just came in. Sorry.
For a little cameo.
Little cameo. Yeah, and here he is again. Hey, bud. You want to talk? Yeah. You want to talk? Okay. Here, I'll give you a microphone. Go ahead and talk.
What does this microphone do?
What the microphone does is it talks about Portugal soccer, buddy. That's what it talks about. Okay, can you go see mine? Hey, can you guys go see mine? This is all staying in, by the way. I'm not cutting this out. There it is. All right, boys. Hey, say goodnight. Say goodnight. Say goodnight to the Seleção podcast audience. Oh, that's fantastic.
That was awesome.
That's fantastic. So yeah, Fernando Santos needs to be fired. That's what we said, right? Yeah, that's where we left off.
That's where we left off. Oh, go back to the point. Number 9, the position that he was playing. I would love to have seen Andres Silva play more often. Jota wasn't playing very well, so why not give Andres Silva the opportunity to do something? And I agree with you about Bernardo Silva. I think I had him in the middle in my first lineup before the game against Hungary. I wanted him in that position. And going back to, the point that really sort of underscores this, which is a system, right? A system of attack, a number 10, a number 9. We can use those what do you call those words?
Buzzwords.
Those buzzwords.
The cliches.
The buzzwords, and there is truth to them. But when you look at the way Portugal attacked, there was no system. Why was there such a clamoring for Fernando Santos to be in Portugal's 11? Because he brings
he brings energy, improvisation.
Well, yes, actually,
sounds like 2 words.
I was never mind. He does improvise.
Yes.
He does improvise. It's late at night here in Miami. He does improvise. He's hard to read. The attacks that he created for the most part in that game and against France, a burst of speed to get away from the guy who's closest to him. He collapses defenses. Don't for a second think that Fernando Santos is going, well, this is what I want you to. I mean, he is saying that, but that's not what's happening on the field.
Sure.
Imprevisível is the word that I was going for. So translate that as you will, because I'm having all sorts of brain farts here. But so I think that as great as that is to see in Renato Sanches, it's also troubling because essentially what it does is it reflects a complete lack of attacking process in the Portuguese national team.
Yeah, it's at that point you're just playing street ball, for lack of a better term.
Unpredictable is the word I was going for.
There you go.
Unpredictable.
We found it.
Yeah,
we found it, Eric. There we go.
We found it.
All right, let's go to some of our Twitter questions, and we thank you guys for sending those in. Again, we apologize for not being on yesterday. We had technical difficulties on both our ends, and look at us now, Eric. No squiggly lines, no choppy sounds. I know I've jinxed it the rest of the time here, but we'll go.
And plenty of cameos.
Plenty. Oh, so many. And is Ramona going to make another an appearance before the Seleção? Oh, she's passed out.
Passed out.
God bless her. All right. Well, let's go to Mario here. His Twitter handle is mal_Amanhado. Oh, Malamanhado. There we go. 20. If Santos is in fact staying at the helm, which we know he is, we would love to see a formation change in the team. Too much attacking power not being taken advantage of. A 3-4-3 perhaps, 3 center backs plus wingers. What are your thoughts and possible formations going forward? I think, Eric, you and I are of the opinion that unless a dog of his age learns a new trick, Fernando Santos is probably going to stick with what he has presented to us.
Yeah, he's never shown any inkling of playing with anything else other than a back four. And he actually, in the press conference leading to the tournament, I think alluded to the back four when he was asked about the possibility of ever playing with a back three. He said, no, we're sticking with what we know. I personally, and this was a conversation I was having with a football commentator, soccer commentator from another network just a couple of days ago. I'm a big fan of the 3-4-3. I always have been, more so after I really learned the ins and outs of the formation. And I think that if you look at the wing-back role, we have players who can perform those duties admirably.
Sure.
Rafael Guerreiro played for Lucien Favre at Dortmund in that position, and we saw him play the best football he's ever played. The defensive liabilities, for the most part, go out the door. On the right side, Cancelo. Nelson Semedo is even better playing in that role. So the issue then becomes, who are the 3 center backs? Now, there's a real possibility that Pep will not feature in the World Cup. I still think he very much has a role to play. I mentioned before at the top of the broadcast that he, along with Renato Sanches, is one of the best players. You look at Ruben Dias, he's going to be the leader of the back line. And then you look at, the guys from the under-21. I like Queiroz. I think he's a good center back. And Late as well. So these are 2 guys who could slot in, but they're green when it comes to the national team.
Sure.
Luis Duarte is a pretty good guy too, but I'm not sure he's of the level that you need to be to really count yourself among the contenders. So I don't think the 3-4-3 is ever going to happen with Fernando Santos, but I think that at times it could be a good formation.
We now go to Paul Rodrigues. Paul is at Paul Jr. OD, PAULJROD. He's asking, any reason why Fernando Santos would choose to keep 3 goalkeepers active on the match day roster? All 3 goalkeepers were available as subs versus France and Belgium. They were actually in all 4 matches. They had all 4 or all 3 on the roster. Why did Santos not make an extra field player available as a sub? Eric, what's the rule? Not rule, but I guess the rule of thumb on that. Are you surprised that in today's football, 3 goalkeepers would be on a game day roster instead of just having the backup and then bringing an extra field player?
Well, look, first of all, if you're gonna allow squads to bring 26 players into a tournament, just let them all be on the bench.
Thank you.
I don't get this.
I've never understood. It was 18 when there's a 23. There's 23 when there's a 26. Yeah. Just everybody, you make them available.
It's silly. Just put these guys on the bench. But that's neither here nor there. And a lot of question marks or a lot of questions were asked of Luis Enrique with Spain when he decided to only bring 24 of the 26 players. Fernando Santos said that, in bringing 26 players, the benefit is, yes, you have a bigger player pool to choose from, but you have to tell 3 players before every game that they're not going to be a part of this squad list. I saw that question on my Twitter page, and it's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Maybe he thinks that Rui Silva can play as an extra striker when the backs are against the wall. He is very tall. He's a very good goalkeeper as well. Called a lot of his games this season for Granada. I really don't know the answer to that question. I really, really don't know. I don't know.
They, Anthony Lopes and Rui Silva were on the team sheets for each of the 4 games. None of them saw any action throughout the tournament, nor would you expect them to. Unless there would be an injury to Rui Patricio, but not making the team sheets. Gonçalo Guedes didn't make it on 3 team sheets. Nuno Mendes, because of injury, didn't make it on the first 2 sheets, I believe. And then Diogo Dalot, Palhinha, Felix Oliveira, and Pedro Gonçalves didn't make it on 1.
Can I just cut you off there?
Yeah, go for it.
By the way, that's great information because I certainly wasn't keeping track of that. But Sergio Oliveira, for me, is just an enigma. A guy who had an excellent, an outstanding season with Porto. A versatile center midfielder, technically gifted. A guy who can shoot from distance. He can do pretty much everything. He's a good set piece guy. Why did he not feature more? I mean, I got no problem with Moutinho playing. I thought he was very good against France.
Yeah, me too.
Against Belgium, he didn't have too many touches in the attacking in Belgium's midfield. Most of it was organizationally in his own half. But why is Sergio Oliveira not playing? I just don't understand. You see, these are questions that make you really wonder about Fernando Santos.
Yeah, and again, let's go back to the Portuguese league. You have a player like Pedro Gonçalves of your beloved Sporting, who led the team, who led the league in scoring.
Yeah,
and not a minute.
No,
not a minute. No. A guy like, again, green beyond green.
You knew that was going to happen.
But at the same time, Eric, it's like you can only call so many people. I mean, again, not only did the roster expand, but also the subs expanded too.
Yeah,
and that's where like going back to the game against Belgium, the back 3 of Belgium was something that I thought Portugal could take advantage of because of the age and because of if they could somehow play a competent offensive game. And I thought 3 guys, yeah, right. And I thought 3 guys that could have been ideally suited to maybe break down a Belgium defense in the second half were Rafa Silva, Pedro Gonçalves, and Gonçalo Guedes. Now, Guedes hasn't had a great season, but you brought him on the roster for a reason, and he has speed. Rafa Silva is the fastest player on that team, and he didn't feature in the last 2 matches. And then you never saw Pedro Gonçalves at all. So
out of those 3, but is the guy who, for me, offered the attributes or had the attributes that could help break down Belgium. They were really far back. I think that, Gonçalo Guedes, you know how I feel about him. I just don't trust him. Rafa, impactful in that game against Hungary, but fortuitously so. Bot is a guy who proved that he can score a variety of different goals for Sporting. He's not just a one-trick pony. And given that these teams Belgium would not have been very familiar with him because he hasn't played, they wouldn't have scouted him that much.
Sure.
He would have offered something a little different. So I completely agree with you. How is this guy not thrown in when you're throwing the kitchen sink at Belgium?
Yeah, and that's where I'm coming. And again, I'll go back to just in terms of the attributes, not so much the form or anything, but the attribute of speed for Rafa Silva and Gonçalo Guedes and Pot. To bring in João Felix, who the day after the tournament is announced that he needs ankle surgery, and I know players will fight through injury until they absolutely don't have any games. But if he's on a bum wheel, and credit to him, I thought in his appearance against Belgium he wasn't terrible. I still think there's a lot of pressure on this kid, unduly so, because he's not the one that was sold, or he's not the one that sold himself for $126 million. Benfica did. And with that comes expectation, whether he wants it or not. But if you're gonna, it frustrated me to have 2 of those speed options, not even on the team sheet against Belgium, and then you have Pot just sitting, twiddling his thumbs and watching an entire senior tournament for the first time from the bench. Again, he's going to get his opportunity
in the under-21 Euro as well.
Absolutely, and he could have. Yeah, he could have helped them, especially with Trincão and was it who else was it? And Thierry Cuellar out via COVID, but that's another story for another day. Quickly, under-21, we didn't mention this name. Rui Jorge, any interest at all in him being the senior team? Yeah, me neither.
I mean, look, I don't think he's actually won anything, right? He didn't win with the under-19s a few years ago. No, look, I think he's done a good job. I think that some of the criticism that's been leveled at him is a little unfair, but he's not done nearly enough to deserve that position.
Let's go now to Johnny C. Johnny used all 260 characters on his Twitter account for this one, and we go to his question here. There we go. What will this team look like in Qatar for the World Cup? Who replaces Pep alongside Ruben Dias? Is CR7 still a lock to start? Will Moutinho and Font be phased out? Which players make the leap to the senior team and make an immediate impact? Thanks, guys. Let's thank you, Johnny, for chiming in here. I'll answer the first question, Eric. I don't think this team looks much different 15 months from now, with maybe the exception maybe in the back I think it'll look different because I don't think Nelson Smith, if a healthy Ricardo Pereira is an option and João Cancelo doesn't get COVID again and doesn't get injured, I think you'll see those two on the right-hand side of the defense. You'll see Nuno Mendes on the left with Rafael Guerreiro, but I think if there's going to be any major change, and I don't even think there will be a major change, but if there is one, I could see maybe bringing a young guy or two in that center back position, to go along with Ruben Dias and Pep. I still think Pep is a starting center back for this team in the World Cup of 2022. Believe it or not.
Well, given the performances we saw from him in this tournament, I don't think you can make an argument against that, but a lot changes in a year, and he is 38 years old.
And the setting just changed to a dark setting. So
look at that. So that's because I was bringing the negativity about Pep. It knew exactly what was going on. I think João Moutinho, there is a chance that he may hang up his national team boots. Font as well. Font is 37. Great season with Lille, but I don't think he wants to be on the bench in the World Cup, and I think that's exactly where he's going to be, and he knows it. So I think we're looking at a young crop of players. I already mentioned Late and Queiroz. I think those two guys are probably going to be amongst the calculations. And Cristiano Ronaldo will definitely be there. And, perhaps, unfortunately, I'm sorry I'm saying this, he'll be starting. Because
wow, you know what, guys? He started. He's gonna finish like he started. No,
and this isn't a knock on him. This is about you either find somebody who comes in and manages to get him to do what he needs to do for the team. And I'm fully aware that overall he played well in this tournament. I'm not saying he hasn't.
Sure.
But Cristiano Ronaldo for the last few years has been one of those players where he gets the job done, but you have to do a lot for him in order for him to get that job done.
Okay.
And he's too old to build a team around him, and there's too much talent to build a team around him. I think he'd probably be more effective coming off the bench. So, of course, he's going to be there. I want to see him there, but I hope that by that point we have found some sort of formula that isn't reliant on him.
Fair enough. Let's go to another question here. And actually, Eric, I before I get to this next question, and it goes kind of with what Johnny was asking. A guy that I felt, another guy I should say that I felt was a huge loss for Portugal in this tournament, and another player that I thought, if he was healthy, especially in that Belgium game, could have been a difference maker, was Pedro Neto, the winger from Wolverhampton. He unfortunately had got a knee injury a couple of months before the tournament started. Obviously, was going to be unavailable, but again, a guy like him could have definitely helped out the Seleção against Belgium and in this tournament overall.
I agree, and I think had he been included, but probably wouldn't, or Gedge, one of those two, I think he would have seen some time. And in the flashes that I saw him wearing a Portuguese national team jersey, I thought he had a lot to offer, and he had a very good season with Wolves.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's go to our next question here. And our next question is from, and now I've screwed up my computer, so give me 1 second. One thing I will say as I try to gather myself here, is there's still I think the most frustrating thing about this tournament in the last couple of years, Eric, is just so much. There's just so much esperança, and I hate to use that term because that's kind of the term that's used for the under 21s, but because of this young senior crop of players, we just don't want to see an opportunity or multiple opportunities end or not be at least explored because of old school tactics. And I think that's been probably the most frustrating part of being a fan the last few years is that, I don't know, there's not a name for this generation, nor do I think should there be, but these guys are plying trade in England and in Spain and in Germany and in France and in Portugal. And you just want to maximize what you have with this squad before the time runs out on Ronaldo and Pep and some other, Moutinho as well. They've won their title, don't get me wrong, but you'd love to see them they are on a team right now that should be fighting for another one or another two before it's all said and done with them.
Yeah, I think fighting is the right word, but all you have to do is just look at this Belgian national team, which is stacked with talent, to know that winning these tournaments is very, very, very hard. Look at what happened to Germany. Look at what just happened to France. I know.
Look what happened to Group F, Eric.
Look what just happened to Group F. Quite literally, the group of death in this tournament. But I think the point is, fighting. At least getting into a position where people all of a sudden think, oh, there's a really good chance that you're going to win because you've made it to the semifinals, and there's too much talent for that not to happen in the World Cup.
Yep. All right, let's go to our next question here, and it is from J Jardine 29. Should Rui Patricio step aside as the starting goalkeeper? You have Anthony Lopes, you have Rui Silva, who you are very high on, but I'm with you as you're shaking your head. I don't think Rui Patricio has done anything egregious enough to say that his time as the starting goalkeeper for the Seleção is over, and he's going to be taking a step up in terms of I don't want to say competition, but just in terms of club. He's supposed to be closing his deal with Roma to join up with José Mourinho here in the next few weeks, maybe in the next few days as the window opens up officially on the 1st. So I don't think Rui Patricio should be stepping aside for anyone at the moment.
No, I don't, and I'm a big fan. You mentioned Rui Silva. I like Rui Silva, but Anthony Lopes is also a phenomenal goalkeeper. He had a stellar campaign with Lyon, where he's been his entire career. I'm glad that he's back in the fold after taking some time off, and I think he's almost as good, if not as good, as Rui Patricio. But Rui Patricio has been unbelievable for the Portuguese national team. The goal that he denied Paul Pogba, which he then replicated successfully against Switzerland. That was just an incredible save, and he does that routinely. He stopped Griezmann in 2016, and I say this having met Rui Patricio.
Look at this guy,
not having liked him too much on a personal level.
Did he push you? Did he push you away with his hands? Is that what happened?
No, he was a little obnoxious. But I got stories about Portuguese national team players. Do you know two of my favorites?
Who's that?
Ruben Amorim, and he was a Benfica player at the time, so you can tell I'm not a clubista.
Okay.
And Elder Postiga, who was a fun guy.
The ball's on him to go. What is it called? Panenka.
Panenka.
Panenka. Yeah. In 2004 against England. The ball.
I have a story about that guy, but I'm going to do him a favor. I won't share.
You know We'll do it. If I ever do a Patreon, we'll have you back on for that one. We'll have the folks.
I'll tell you this. When he saw me after a game, he gave me a big hug.
Oh, look you're getting him. You're getting embraced by national teamers here. Eric, you're such a big deal, buddy. I'm
definitely not a big deal, but I've gotten to spend some time with some of these guys.
You know what? A player that we haven't touched on a little bit. That I think had a rough go of it was Bruno Fernandes. Again, I think for him, I really think it's a system issue with this national team, like so many other players. It's just seeing him it's a frustrating thing to see him be as good as he is with Man U and just not be able to replicate that even a little bit with the national team. Do you have any worries, I guess, at this point with Bruno Fernandes on this national team, or is it again just more of a Fernando Santos issue than it is a Bruno Fernandes issue for the most part?
I think only Harry Maguire, played more minutes than Bruno Fernandes for Manchester United this season. I think Ruben Dias. I know that he's in the top five.
I think Bruno Fernandes played the most minutes in all of the Premier League.
Did he really? Okay,
yeah.
So Bruno Fernandes. Yeah. So you've got that knock against him, right? I mean, he looked fatigued at times. I think he had a good second half against Hungary. Playing out of position, he's the one who creates the first goal with an incredible pass to Rafa in the half space. I know there was a lot of luck involved, but his vision to thread that ball just shows all the quality that he has at his disposal. But I do think it's a systems thing. Look, this is a guy who picks up the ball in a lot deeper positions for Manchester United. He has a lot of positional freedom, and that is not the case with Portugal. And I think one of the biggest headaches that Fernando Santos will have going forward is trying to get, and this is something we mentioned in our preview of the tournament, is trying to get the club form into the national team, his club form into the national team. And for that, maybe you need to build the team a little bit more around him than anybody else. I don't know. I don't quite know the answer to that, because also you got Bernardo Silva, who you say you want to see in the middle. I'd like to see him in the middle. We've got a lot of players who play in similar positions.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, but it's still a problem nonetheless. And you got to hope that at some point, Fernando Santos or whoever comes a knocking as the manager figures out the right strings to pull.
Maybe that 3-4-3 that we were asked about would be suited.
Maybe. Okay, so Eric, that's it for in terms of the tournament questions. You are a man of football. So I'm going to ask you a little bit, or bring up some noteworthy tweets or some news here regarding Seleção players. The first one involves Fernando Santos. I think he was the player of the tournament for Portugal. I don't know if you feel the same. I know that him and Pep were your top two there, but there is some noise that he's probably earned another shot at a big club. Obviously, what happened with Bayern a few years back after the purchase from Benfica did not go well after 2016. He's rebuilt his stock at Lille and in this tournament. Andre Vega is asking, assuming Renato has earned himself a move this Euro 2020, what club would you think would give him the best chance to succeed and be the star again at 2022? And I didn't even catch the Felix part of this question, and for that matter, if Felix was ever to move too, I've heard and read that Liverpool and Juve are interested in Fernando Santos. I would assume that maybe Bayern would want to maybe bring him back, but I don't think there's any kind of buyback issue. I don't believe, but you would think that big clubs, Eric, are going to be knocking on Fernando Santos' door this summer, and maybe a move away from Lille could be in the offing.
Yes, it's very likely, because Lille are in financial dire straits. In fact, most of the French clubs are, because of their domestic TV deals breaking down. So I think there's a very good possibility that he will jump ship. Although Lille are asking for 90 million.
I'm sorry, that you didn't say 19, right?
No, definitely not 19. And given that he's still under contract, I think for another 2 years, they have a lot of power. But I can see a big team wrestling them wrestling him away from the club and doing some sort of deal with a lot of the payments coming in the future. So Juventus, I think, would be a pretty good fit. They lack an explosive midfielder like him. I think that's one of the big problems that they had this season. They didn't have that sort of dynamic box-to-box midfielder. I don't know if he'd go back to Bayern. Apparently, they have that buyback clause that you mentioned. I really had never heard about that buyback clause.
I'm not 100% sure. Again, it's all on Twitter. So take Twitter for whatever it's worth.
Well, the Sun, or one of those trustworthy, not newspapers, if you could call them that, tabloids, mentioned the buyback clause. So maybe Juve, who knows? That could keep Cristiano Ronaldo at the Vecchia Signora.
Well, maybe you just never know. Next question next tweet, I should say, regarding some movement this summer regarding Seleção players. Sean Gillen, who does a great job of on the transfer side of things for Portugal.net. He shared that the German newspaper Bild is reporting that André Silva is set to sign for RB Leipzig from Frankfurt for an initial fee of 23 million and could go up to 35 million, with Silva earning up to 4 million euros per year at Leipzig. Don't know the length of that deal. I would assume it'd be at least 3 to 4 seasons. But what do you think of a potential move for André Silva moving over from Frankfurt to RB Leipzig?
I think it's a great deal for both the player and for the club. Since Timo Werner left 2 seasons ago, RB Leipzig haven't had a dependable scorer. Poulsen from the Danish international is there, but he's not a guy who scores at a high clip. You have one of the outstanding playmakers and one of the top scorers in this Euro, in Emil Forsberg, who is excellent. So it's a team that is going to go through a rebuilding process with Jesse Marsch, by the way, who's now in charge of the club.
American Jesse Marsch.
American Jesse Marsch, with Julian Nagelsmann heading to Bayern Munich. They've lost some of their best center backs to Liverpool and to Bayern Munich. So there's going to be a rebuild, and why not bring André Silva into that project? He's proven that he's a goal scorer in the Bundesliga. There had been some rumored interest from Real Madrid, as well as somebody in Italy. But if you know the league well and you're going to be handsomely remunerated, why not stay where you are comfortable and with a very ambitious club? Boy,
look whose vocabulary just came back. What was that word you just used?
Remunerated.
Yeah, buddy.
Paid. Yeah, there you go.
That's a good
off.
Sean Gillen also tweeting out this report from the Gazzetta dello Sport. I don't think I have a really good Italian dialect here, but Cristiano Ronaldo's future will be discussed during a meeting between Jorge Mendes and Juve. When that meeting is going to take place, we don't know. Could have already taken place, could be taking place the next few days. The Italians are prepared to accept offers of 29 million for our Portuguese captain. Eric, I had posed this to you before the show, but I find 29 million to be a bit low. I know he's 36. I know he's on the wrong side of everything in terms of age, but he is a player who has scored over 100 goals in the Italian league in the last 3 years. I think I would be a little shocked if I saw Ronaldo not playing for Juve next season, with the fact that he was sold for 29 million euros or $35 million, I think would be the convergence there. But does that number shock you? And do you think Ronaldo will be back with Juve next season?
The number doesn't shock me, and all you have to do is realize the financial predicament that Juventus find themselves in. They have to pay this guy, I think it's 31 million clean, limpos, as they say in Portugal.
Limpinho.
I think it's 31 million. And as I already noted, in order for Cristiano Ronaldo to be successful, you need to build a team around him. And I don't know whether going forward at 36, that's a smart and prudent thing for Juventus to do. And again, not that I need to do this, but I'll do it. I love Cristiano Ronaldo as a player. And much like we were saying, Fernando Santos has been fantastic for the Portuguese national team. So is Cristiano Ronaldo, not just for the Portuguese national team, but for the world's game. But at the end of the day, Juventus have to make a decision that is financially healthy for them, and I think that is allowing Cristiano Ronaldo to go. And I do believe that this could happen because usually you'd see a club like Juventus bending backwards, trying to get out the message that the future for Cristiano Ronaldo is at Juve. He's not going anywhere. They haven't done that. Nedved, at one point, their sporting director, said, no, he'll be here next season. That was a month and a half ago.
Sure.
Nothing has been said since. So I do believe that he's going to go. I've got a couple of ideas where he may end up. And I think this is more out of necessity for Juve than anything else. And I'm not sure Max Allegri wants to keep him in Turin.
Can I press you on where you think he could end up? He's not going to Sporting yet.
No, he's not going to go to Sporting yet. I think that he could potentially end up at PSG.
That's so underwhelming.
Why?
I think PSG would have been the move before Juve if I had my druthers.
Well, listen. I mean,
again,
the amount of talent that they have there.
I would hate to see him on the same field as Neymar. I really do, and I don't know if that would mean that one either Mbappe or Neymar would have to go. That attack of those three up top would be just absolutely dangerous. But I'm not a fan of Neymar, the player. I don't think he really makes a team that much better.
My God, Danny!
I think if there's ever been a player who is more show than he is talent, in my opinion, it's Neymar.
We have to have words after this podcast. I won't pursue that avenue of discussion, but it does look. It could create some imbalances in the team. I understand that, but knowing that Cristiano Ronaldo is obsessed with titles, the possibility of going to another country to win another league,
sure,
and then having a good chance of winning the Champions League with somebody else, which we know was his goal going to Juve. That didn't work out. I think there is a possibility that he goes there. I don't think he goes to Manchester United anymore because they're about to spend a big load of cash on a guy who's hardly featured for England, Jadon Sancho, who I think is England's best player.
Yeah, and they somehow made it to the quarterfinals. You know what, Eric? Maybe it is coming home. You never know.
Yeah.
Last one here, and it's very critical of you. This is in response to us posting for the show here.
He must have been drinking something when he wrote this.
He said he's listened to all the pods. I think your insight is awesome. You have a profound soccer knowledge and are great in the breaking down the team's tactics. Glad to have you on our side. This is from Huberto. You can follow him on Twitter at Forza Electric.
This is my burner account, by the
way. I bring this up. Only to say, as part of a just huge thank you for you being with us this entire Euros. We both wish it would have gone a little longer. Our significant others maybe are a little happy that the tournament is over, but I think mine is anyway because now I have to get ready for a vacation that I was hoping was going to get delayed maybe by a couple of days, but it's fine. But Eric, this show has never been more visible than it has been in this tournament. And I'm not here to blow smoke up your ass.
That has nothing to do with me. It just has to do with the tournament.
You know what? The tournament does help. I'm not going to lie. But having I approached you with this idea about a month or so before the tournament started. And I thought that it would be fun to have a collaborative effort here with us during the tournament. And the response we've gotten has been nothing short of positive. I mentioned in the last episode, we started, just in terms of numbers on Twitter, we were at just over 800. We are now almost at 1,100 in terms of Twitter followers. Our downloads have been up. We've ranked in the top 10 in 2 countries on soccer podcasting charts, one being Canada. So shout out to the GTA and everybody in Toronto and everyone in Canada. Also Taiwan. We've done well in Taiwan, top 3 in Taiwan. So, all the jerseys that you're wearing, all the clothes that you're wearing, give a little shout out to them. But all kidding aside, it's just been a lot of fun, man. And I'm glad we've built on the relationship that started 3 years ago when you first came on the pod. And I feel like I've made a friend for life here. And I just really thank you for your time and your generosity, because the last episode we did, you were up until 3 a.m. talking to me, dude. It's now approaching midnight in Miami. Your passion for this, your just professionalism, and I can't thank you enough, man. I really do. Thank you.
Listen, man, thank you, because when you offered me this opportunity, I took it because, getting to talk about the Portuguese national team, as I've said before, is not something I get to do often because I don't cover the team in any other place. So this has been a great fun. You've done a great job. Not once did I make fun of that microphone that you have in front of your face.
It's this one doesn't work for whatever reason. All right, sorry.
I actually want to also thank everybody who's been listening to the pod, because they've been reaching out. They've been very, very gracious, very, very kind. That Roberto one, that's me.
Is your middle name Hubert? Is it Eric Hubert Krakauer? Is that it?
My name is, what is it? Seleção electric.
Oh, let me bring it back up here.
Força Electric. Força Electric. That's what it was. So I sent him a message, and I appreciate the kind words. And look, sadly, it didn't work out the way we expected it to or hoped that it would. But there is a silver lining, and that is that you can watch the rest of the tournament without dreading the day that Portugal takes the field, because it is always when I'm at my most nervous and anxious and at my worst, because my behavior is terrible before those games.
Yeah, the swearing is a bit of a problem when I'm watching the Seleção. I was at a buddy of mine is having a baby, so Anthony Costa, shout out to you and baby Costa coming in August. But as his wife was having her baby shower that day, he invited us all over to their house to watch the game. And there was a young child. She may have been maybe 3 or 4 years old, and her father, who I never met before, was with her. And I'm like, all right, Danny, you've got to ring it in. Just rein it in. It's just a game. Sure enough, as soon as Jota misses that first opportunity in the 6th minute, I let out an F-bomb, and I'm just like, I'm so sorry, sir. I'm going to go watch it in the garage or something. And the dad and the daughter left at halftime, and I don't want to say it was because of me, but I don't think it wasn't not because of me. So but it's, you can watch these games, unfortunately, now with a lot of more relaxation. I mean, yesterday, we're recording here on a Tuesday here, Monday during the Euros. Outside of Portugal winning in 2016, Eric, I don't know if I've ever been more excited for the amount of drama and the just heart attacking style that we saw in the Spain match and in the France match as well. Just wall to wall 3-1 leads, not being able to be held. It's a great time. I think it's been a great tournament. I think the only thing I've hated is just the multiple multiple areas that the European tournament is taking place. But I think the tournament's been great, and I just think it's been awesome to watch.
Yeah, lots of goals. One of the best tournaments ever. I agree with you. I don't like the multi-hosting cities, multi-hosting countries, especially when you're UEFA. You're basically giving home field advantage to some countries that have some very questionable political practices. That's all I'll say about that. But UEFA haven't exactly covered themselves in glory with that whole those shenanigans with Bayern Munich, the Allianz wanting to light up the stadium in pride colors, which would have been great, but caving into political pressure. So great tournament. Unfortunately, we're not in it anymore, but we can certainly still enjoy it.
Is it coming home, Eric?
I don't think so. I think Spain is going to win it.
All right, Eric, over England more than likely.
Oh yeah,
you think it's a Spain-England final?
You know what? I wouldn't look past Denmark. I love Denmark.
Boy, what a story! What a story that would be!
Yeah.
Oh man, Eric, we could go on forever here, bud. But I'm going to let you go because you have absolutely gone way above and beyond. Again, thank you so much for being a part of this summer with me in this tournament. And I think I'm going to give you leave for the rest of the calendar year 2021. I'll get the World Cup qualifying stuff. We'll get some other folks on board. Give you the rest of the summer. Hope you have a great summer, man. And looking forward to seeing you back on a TV near you and very soon. And all the best to the family. And yeah, man, muito obrigado again. And un abraço from California for sure.
Abraço. Enjoy your vacation. Until next time.